to get to on this Monday in New York City. How we doing, Evan and Tiki on the Fan? We promise within the first 10 minutes of the show, our reaction to the end of the Aaron Rodgers era. But I do want to congratulate Nick Sirianni and his punchable face, Howie Roseman and his brilliance, and all our friends in that disgusting city known as Philadelphia. And you you're dead to me, Saquon Barkley. I want to congratulate all of them on winning a Super Bowl. It was also, Tiki, the worst Super Bowl of our lifetime.
No, I think I played in the worst Super Bowl of our lifetime. Even though it was entertaining for like 36 seconds when Kerry threw a pick six and then Ron Dixon returned the kickoff back for a touchdown and Jermaine Lewis returned it back for a subsequent touchdown. It was like 3 touchdowns in 36 seconds, but it was ultimately a blowout. It's very rare, Evan, we get these kind of bad games in a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And I'll echo what you just said about the Philadelphia Eagles. Give them credit. Give Howie Roseman credit. This organization, as much heat as they sometimes take, they have put together a pretty consistent winner. And over the last 8 years or so, you got to take your hat off to them and give them respect for always putting a product that can potentially win a Super Bowl. There's something else about this Super Bowl which I'm actually excited about from a Philadelphia Eagles standpoint, and we'll get to it. It has a lot to do with the quarterback, obviously, but congrats to the Philadelphia Eagles. Well-deserved honor. They were the better team. The Chiefs got away with some smoke and mirrors for a lot of this year, and the Eagles just exposed them.
Yeah. I mean, this was, I guess it depends on your age. I'm 41 years old, so I grew up in the 90s. That was my introduction to the Super Bowl, and they all sucked. They were all awful. They were blowouts. True. It was ugly. It was usually the NFC destroying the AFC. And then we had a golden age. I would even argue we're in that golden age where Super Bowls are classics. Think about last year. Think about the debate the day after the game. Is this the greatest of all time? I would say in my lifetime, this was the greatest systematic destroying of another team I've ever seen. And look, if you're a Philadelphia Eagle fan, you enjoyed every second of it. If you hate the Chiefs, if you're anti-Mahomes and you're anti-Kelsey and you're anti-Reed, I'm sure you enjoyed it too. For me, sitting there as someone that was hoping the Chiefs would win for a myriad of reasons, it was awful.
Right.
It was just, and it made me hate everything. It made me hate the commercials. It made me hate the halftime show. It made me hate Tom Brady. I love Kevin Burkhardt. It made me hate Kevin Burkhardt. It was just such a miserable, disgusting, awful experience. And I don't know if anyone else shares that with me. I know a lot of Giant fans are obviously miserable. Maybe it was easy because the Band-Aid was ripped off and you knew immediately Saquon was going to win a Super Bowl. And he wasn't going to stick it down your throat by winning an MVP because obviously, and a lot of it was KC stacking the box, but Saquon didn't have like this epic performance. But the whole 4-hour experience was just, ugh.
Yeah, it left a lot to be desired. And you could get into the details, but who really even cares about the details of this game? Because the dynasty is crushed, at least for the short term.
Well, I was going to say, the dynasty is not over. Right. It just took
a little
bit of a bump in the road.
Think about it. Think about the Giants back in 2007. The greatest team ever to play, the New England Patriots. Forget the 72 Dolphins. This Patriots team's going to do it better, and they get beat by the Giants, and it's just over. It's the same thing, the same hype was around this Kansas City Chiefs team. Yeah, they're not always the best team, but they're going to find a way to win. I said this. They got the better coach on both sides of the ball, offensive coordinator and Andy Reid and head coach and defensive coordinator and Steve Spagnuolo and the forever elite Patrick Mahomes, the unflappable Patrick Mahomes. All right, Vic Fangio, what are you doing at the challenge? I'm just going to send 4. I'm not going to blitz or dog at all.
Not one time.
We're going to beat the hell out of your offensive line. Pat Mahomes, how you like them apples? And it goes down in flames, and the Eagles take credit for it. And so, again, you give them credit, but God, the Kansas City Chiefs were a no-show. And it's the last narrative I thought we would have talked about regarding this Super Bowl. That the Kansas City Chiefs and Pat Mahomes were a no-show.
It's funny. 2 weeks ago when we were predicting the championship games, I predicted that the Chiefs would get blown out by the Buffalo Bills, that they would, quote, take their soul.
You're a week late.
Yeah, I was 2 weeks off. I was 2 weeks off. They did have that feeling all year that they were flawed and they could be beat, and sometimes it all comes crashing down. But I think watching them 2 weeks ago find a way to beat Buffalo and watching them continue to find their ways to escape with victories, you figured they're just going to find a way again.
Yeah.
And what's crazy is there aren't going to be many moments that you will remember from this game, but go back to the opening drive when Jalen Hurts on 4th down connects to A.J. Brown for a 32-yard catch, and then they call offensive pass interference, and America is freaking out like, see, it's rigged! It's rigged! That has become a forgotten about play because it was such a blowout.
Right.
But in the first 5 minutes of this game, the conversation was, here we go again. The refs are in the bag for the Kansas City Chiefs. And then it just got awful. Travis Kelce had a drop. They're going 3 and out. Mahomes is missing open receivers. They can't take advantage of the interception, the Brian Cook interception. They go 3 and out in their own territory. It was awful. For wrestling fans, this was Brock Lesnar against John Cena at SummerSlam. And I'll just give you a quick description on that, Tiki. Brock Lesnar just beat the crap out of John Cena for 18 minutes. That was the entire match. It was and some people enjoyed it because it was like, great, John Cena's the dynasty, and he's getting just destroyed. And that was the entire match. And I remember walking away from that match saying, well, that was a lot of fun. I enjoyed watching John Cena get his ass kicked.
Right.
That's why I understand if you're anti-Chief. Obviously, if you're an Eagle fan, that goes without saying. But if you're anti-Chief, I could see you really, really enjoying that bloodbath because that's what it was. Mm-hmm. Now, let's get to what matters.
Go ahead.
I was very mixed about what the Jets should do with Aaron Rodgers, okay? Very mixed. The only thing I felt strongly about is I wanted Aaron Glenn to make the decision, not Woody Johnson. I wanted Aaron Glenn to make that decision. Obviously, on Sunday morning, early Sunday afternoon, Jay Glazer comes out with the report. Rodgers came to Jersey. The Jets said, no, thank you. And I then spent the entire morning digesting it. I explained it to my kids because Jet wanted to know, since he had an Aaron Rodgers shirt for his birthday last year, what's going on with Rodgers?
Right.
Why isn't he back? And here's the reason why I'm good with it. Here's the reason why it makes complete sense, and I want every Jet fan to rally around this. We plan on being fans until we're dead, okay?
Yes. You don't have a choice.
We don't have a choice. We're in, right?
Right. You're already committed this long, you might as well stay.
Right. So in 2027, I'm a Jet fan. In 2032, assuming, again, I'm not dead, I'm a Jet fan. This is not about just next year, okay? If you told me the world is going to blow up, okay, football's over, and this is the final season of football, this is the series finale of the National Football League, then I would be screaming into a microphone, you have to bring back Aaron Rodgers. But if we're looking at the big picture, we're looking at the salary cap implications over the next few years. We're looking at finding our next franchise quarterback. We're looking at, dare I say, Aaron Glenn, figuring out the identity and the culture of this team. If we're thinking about the big picture, they had to rip the Band-Aid off.
Right.
And that's what this comes down to. I get what Beningo said and a lot of Jet fans said about who gives us the best chance to win in 2025. I agree. Even at 41, it would have been Aaron Rodgers. Mm-hmm. But next year is not our last year being Jet fans.
Right. Well, the other thing that you have to realize, and this is different for the team that shares the stadium with the New York Giants, Aaron Glenn is in his first year. There's some time for patience if you get it askew. Not saying it's wrong, but you pick the wrong horse to back on the quarterback situation. So whether that's Kirk Cousins, who's being floated out there, whether that's Daniel Jones, whether they've drafted a kid in the second round or find a way to move up and take one of these kids in the first round, there's time. You have time to figure that out in some capacity. And unlike the Giants, who need a win right now, otherwise John Mara's not going to feel better than he did at the end of this past season, and everybody's going to get fired, the Jets have the luxury of taking a prudent approach, not an irrational approach.
Right.
And let's face it, if you're Aaron Glenn and Muji, you got to say, in your mind, Aaron Rodgers, even though he gives us the best chance to win, is probably the irrational approach, right? To believe that he's going to all of a sudden turn back into this elite quarterback that you saw 4 years ago. It's probably not the case, nor as a new organization, because of the general manager's new, the head coach is new. There's probably going to be a third of the new players that are going to be new. The front office is somewhat new because of Rick Spielman, who's now there. The last thing you want is the distraction that Aaron Rodgers brings. And that's his Pat McAfee nonsense. That's his passive aggressiveness. That's the aura of, I don't know, hero worship that follows him.
Yeah.
And it's so, like, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying it's a distracting thing. And if you're Aaron Glenn, you want no part of that. So I think I think like you, it was the right move. Figuring out what's next, that's a couple of steps down.
Oh, no, and it's complicated. I'd admit that. I think Aaron Glenn, and I assume he did this. I want to trust Aaron Glenn. As Aaron Rodgers is in that room with him in New Jersey, and what a job that didn't leak out. Aaron Rodgers flies through New Jersey, meets with Aaron Glenn and Darren Muji, and none of us know?
Right.
I mean, think about that.
I mean, it's the reason, like when this first came out, when this came out over the weekend, Jay Glazer was it Jay that put this out? Yeah,
Jay Glazer reported yesterday.
Yeah, Glazer reported this. It was kind of like, man, why are you doing this now? It's like it's a news dump.
Right.
But it's actually the perfect time to do it because who the hell is paying attention to the Jets with the Eagles getting ready to take on the Chiefs in the Super Bowl?
Just Jet fans.
Exactly.
We were.
And so nobody, I mean, all the media is probably down in New Orleans. Like there's nobody paying attention to this moment. Right. So it was actually the perfect time when you really think about it.
Well, I would hope that Aaron Glenn sat there and interviewed Aaron Rodgers, and he needed to hit check marks on everything for him to say, I want to run it back with Aaron Rodgers. And I assume those questions involved maybe the extracurricular stuff like Pat McAfee. I'm not bothered by it personally. I enjoy when he goes on Pat McAfee. But if that's something Aaron Glenn wants to keep in-house, I get it.
You as a fan enjoy that.
Yes.
But if you were the head coach,
I would not enjoy that. No, I wouldn't.
Exactly.
That's why I'm okay with Aaron Glenn saying, hey, for you to come back, I need to get all the right answers on all these questions I'm going to ask you. And I assume that Aaron Glenn had a little bit of a checklist. The thought being, if I can get 10 for 10 out of Aaron Rodgers and believe by looking into his eyes, he is completely bought in what I'm doing, then I'll bring it back. Because like I said, of course he gives them the best chance to win in 2025. And then it would be worth figuring out the cap issues of 26 and 27 down the road. But if I don't get every answer I want, I got to move on. And here's what sucks. Here's what sucks as a Jet fan. Here's what sucks is a guy who's a season ticket holder. I can say that too. Next year is darker than it could have been if Rodgers came back. I admit that. Because like you even alluded to, what are you doing at the quarterback position? How does this affect everybody else in the building? I get that. But here's the real question you got to ask yourself. If Aaron Rodgers came back and had success and the Jets won 9 or 10 games and Rodgers played well, then what? Then what? Is he coming back in 26 at 42, 43? Is he coming back in 27? And that's where I always leaned towards they should move on. Because we're all going to be here in 27 and 28.
Right. Yes.
We're all going to be fans. What's the game plan? And so it stinks for me at 41, for Beningo at 70, to realize that the Jets' better chances of winning would have been with Rodgers, and he's not coming back. But in the whole grand scheme of things, when you can take your medicine on the cap, which they should do, by the way, don't give me this post-June 1st crap. You take all your medicine right away. You can offset it by cutting Devontae Adams because of the way that contract is structured. You can still set yourself up and have about $25 million in cap space, which is about 20th in the NFL. So they're not completely buried. It helps you build for the future. And that's why, dude, this sucks. I'll be the first to tell you. Because when Aaron Rodgers came here, I had high hopes. When Aaron Rodgers came here, I was dreaming. And the reality is, I put this poll out a few months ago. Loogie tweeted about it last night. It's all true. This is the biggest disaster in New York sports history. It is. And trust me, I think I have a vantage point on this that very few people have. Because I root for the Nets and I root for the Jets, and I've seen them both.
Right.
And this one's worse.
Yeah. I mean, it's worse, but it's also, I think, the opportune time for the Jets to, like, finally breathe some fresh air and not faulty expectations based on whatever, I don't know, pre-existing positions are there. Whether it was, we drafted this great young quarterback, Zach Wilson. Oh, we brought in this great veteran quarterback, Aaron Rodgers. Just breathe and do it the right way. And hey, look, there's plenty of examples to look at. Look how the Chiefs have built their team. You look how the Eagles have built their team. The Jets have an opportunity right now to do this the right way, the prudent way, and not try to rush to the finish line. And I think so often over the last few years, that's what it's felt like. That's what they've been doing. And you can't take shortcuts, man, because All it takes is one little misstep, and that shortcut gets blown up, and you're back to square one.
The toll-free number is 888-808-1019. Giant fans, are you okay? The Eagles won a Super Bowl, second time in their history. Saquon Barkley has a big, beautiful ring around his finger.
I've heard you guys had some trouble sleeping lately.
I'm asking as a friend, how are you doing? New York Jet fans, how are you doing? The Aaron Rodgers era apparently is over. We'll get to your calls next, 888-808-1019. And I'm holding something in my hands. What am I holding, Tiki
That
Barber?
is a giant, beautiful, adorned L.
That's right. We have an L on this show. Sometimes you've got to take your L. When we come back, a very short and sweet ceremony to place this L around the neck of Saquon hater and Eagle hater Sean Morash, whose penalty for the Eagles winning the Super Bowl is to have to wear this beautiful L for an entire month.
Saquon.